Welcome in, everybody. It is so good to see you today. I'm Benjamin Parker, of course. This is Sports and Money. We are doing the Pro Football GM version, and we're still doing a lot of our meetings after the draft, going through several of these different teams with people who cover them. Today, Ronan Summers is back with us. He covers the Rams for Phantom Sports. Ronan, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. How about yourself?
Really great. I know you're definitely still excited to some degree about the Super Bowl, right? I'm sure to the day that you die, you'll always look back at the day the Rams won the Super Bowl.
Of course.
But now, after we've gone through all this off season, most of free agency is kind of over, and most of the draft obviously is over. How do you feel right now? Just broad strokes about the Rams with the Super Bowl in the rearview mirror, and next season kind of not too far away now.
I think we're in a really good place. Coming off of that Super Bowl victory, obviously there's going to be a ton of momentum. Stafford in his first year won the Super Bowl, so I don't want to say you can only go up, but that was a very good first year in the system. There have been some changes. There were quite a few key departures, and I don't know if the Rams necessarily brought in the same amount of departures, at the same level that they lost. But I think that the NFC is wide open, especially now. Somehow it keeps getting wider and wider. And I think that there is a very good chance that the Rams can make another nice run next season.
I agree. The Buccaneers are going to be right back in the middle of it, but I don't necessarily think they're anywhere near the team they were 2 seasons ago. The Cowboys, who knows which version of Dallas is going to show up this year? It might be back to mediocrity. There's a lot of excitement in Philadelphia, but I think that's more like a winning a division kind of a thing, right? Maybe not Super Bowl type of stuff. The Packers, they'll compete, but I don't know that the Packers are going to scare anybody this year necessarily. So, and I'm sure I'm leaving a couple teams out, but in general, I agree. I think the Rams. I think it's right there for the Rams to be back in the mix again for sure.
Precisely. I'm right there with you.
So we come to this year's draft for the Rams, and as everybody knows, it's been very well publicized from the parade all the way till draft weekend. They had no first round pick and no second round pick. And while that's irritating, I'm sure you can always, whether you're yourself or Les Snead or Sean McVay, you just say, yeah, but we got a Super Bowl trophy sitting there on the shelves for it. You do have a pick in the third round, and the first pick that you get is Logan Bruce, offensive guard out of Wisconsin. I'm also going to lump in the offensive tackle AJ Arcuri from Michigan State in the seventh round. Talk to me just a little bit about those two guys on the offensive line, and tell us about the Rams picking them up in the draft.
Yeah, so honestly, the addition of a guard, I probably should have expected it after that Cole Strange, Sean McVay reaction came out, but I guess I wasn't really expecting offensive line in the third round. I knew we needed it. I knew, with Corbett leaving, we needed someone to at least fight for the spot at right guard. I think Bobby Evans it might be his job to lose going into camp, but getting Bruce, he played right tackle majority in college. He played a little bit at guard. He is the third Wisconsin offensive lineman, which I thought was very interesting for the Rams because they already have Rob Havenstein at right tackle and David Edwards at left guard. So it seems like there's something there. They seem to really like their Badger offensive lineman. I can't really blame them. Aside from Iowa, I think that's a pretty maybe Notre Dame as well, but that's a pretty solid school to get some big dudes out of. But with
Absolutely.
Bruce, we didn't draft an offensive lineman last year, not one in the draft. So coming out, pick 104, our first pick in the draft, which is just that's sadly hilarious, I guess.
Right.
Bruce, he should step right into camp and fight for that right guard spot. I don't have the stats pulled up right in front of me, but I want to say that he didn't allow a sack last year, and I think he did really well, not allowing pressures, not allowing sacks. Obviously, there's room to grow. Third round offensive linemen, they're always going to be a tad raw, but I love the pick. I think he can probably be the long-term answer to being Corbett's replacement, which is that's great news whenever you find a potential long-term replacement in the third round. Now for our Curry, seventh round pick 261, obviously going to be much more raw. Uh, he's probably going to be a bit more of a swing tackle. He might have some guard flexibility, but I think he's just going to be more of a depth piece, which, we lost two offensive linemen this season or this off season. So I don't hate either pick. I love them, actually.
Going back to the Wisconsin thing, I was just talking to Simon Short literally yesterday on video about the same thing in connection with the Steelers. They were drafting players from Memphis. We were seeing that over the past, 2, 3, 4 seasons, whatever it was. It's not unusual. I think a lot of these NFL teams like certain players from certain universities who just kind of seem to fit what they need. And then also you have the relationships that I'm sure have been built with, an offensive line coach somewhere or coordinator somewhere that, you just trust this guy to give you the truth about his players. Not surprising. How good a shape is the offensive line just at a passing glance? You feel great about it, down about it, just not necessarily in details, just how do you feel about it moving forward right now?
I personally, there may be some people who have a little bit more of a concern heading into the season. I think we're in good standing. The Rams are. Noteboom, he put up similar production to Whitworth, which I think, obviously it was a smaller sample size, but that's a good sign, if we can get him, playing top 15, top 10 tackle in the league, I don't think he's getting paid like a top 10 tackle in the league. I'm pretty sure he's getting paid a little bit outside the top 10 of the pay grade. I like Noteboom a lot. I think he can end up being the anchor on the left side for a while. And then, like I said, we've got Bruce who's going to be fighting and Bobby Evans who's going to be fighting for right guard. That's really the only spot that's up in the air, which if you only have one spot on the offensive line, that's a bit of a concern or a question mark. That's decent. There are some teams who are working with 3 question marks, 4, 2. We'll take it.
I totally agree. When you have an offensive line, and this goes for almost any team, there's very few teams in the NFL who have no questions at offensive line. So to only have one, especially with all the changes during this offseason, I think is fantastic if you're the Rams. This next group, we've got the 4th round draft pick, Jacoby Durant, cornerback out of South Carolina State. I'm going to put all these defensive backs together for a second. There's 4 of them. So Jacoby Durant from South Carolina State. Then in the 6th round, Quentin Lake, safety from UCLA. Then you drop down, and I've missed, 6th round still, Darien Kendrick, cornerback from Georgia. And then in the 7th round, Russ Yeast, safety from Kansas State. I'll ask you just a couple of questions here as we lump these defensive backs together. Which one did you kind of like the best out of these 4? And were you surprised at all that the Rams kind of hit this position group hard in the draft with what they did have?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I knew that we were probably going to take maybe a piece or 2 for our secondary, but I didn't expect 4. But I don't hate it. It was definitely our weakest position group, and I think it still is. We'll get to that in a little bit. But, we lost Darius Williams. We lost John Johnson a year ago or a year or 2 ago. We've got a lot of youth back there. And I don't know if these moves were for potential starters. I think it was more of a depth draft, which I am completely fine with because these guys can, easily step up. Injuries happen, that. So I love the attention that the Rams gave to the secondary this draft. I think this class was pretty deep in the corners and safeties. Probably my favorite would have to be Durant just because of how flashy he was in college. He was, I'm looking right here. He earned the APFCS All-American award and the MEAC Defensive Player of the Year last year in 2021. He in 12 starts, he put up 3 picks, 12 pass breakups, and 38 tackles. Those are pretty good numbers for a slot corner, you know. He had a really good game against Clemson, which I think was kind of what brought most of the attention to him. I might be reaching here, but I want to say he had 2 picks that game. He has a knack for the ball. He's a slot corner. He's a little bit undersized, but his instincts should make up for it. So out of the 4, I think Jacoby Durant is probably my favorite.
I think it's so important, and this is what good franchises do. You realize you don't have a first, second round pick. You don't even have a top 100 pick in this year's draft, but at least you walk away with something. And if you walk away here with a slot corner coming off of this draft, you at least have something of value coming out of this draft. And so I certainly love that. That's what the good franchises do. Just very quickly, Darien Kendrick out of Georgia. Chances to make the team. What do you think? Some of the all-field stuff. Just give us a real quick, feeling for Darien Kendrick out of Georgia.
Yeah, he's got some off-the-field issues. He was booted off of Clemson and was later arrested for, I think, a marijuana possession and illegal possession of a gun, I want to say. That I believe is what it was. He later transferred to Georgia, where he earned second-team All-SEC, for that Georgia Bulldog defense that won the national championship. He didn't give up a touchdown as a primary defender last year, which is good news. He does, however, have some, athletic question marks. He isn't the fastest. His RAS was pretty terrible. The raw athletic score, I believe, relative athletic score. I can't put it all together at the moment. But he's gonna – I feel like he could potentially play safety. This might be a terrible take, but I feel like he might have a little bit more production at safety. He has a great knack for the ball, but he just can't. I don't know if he'll keep up with these elite level receivers or even, second and third tier receivers who can kick it into the extra gear. But he like I said, he's got great instincts. I think he should be able to make the team. I don't think that the Rams would have taken 4 pieces in the secondary if they weren't at least, really, really hoping that they work out. But yeah, did you watch any of Kendrick in college? Do you have any thoughts on him?
I didn't break down a whole lot of tape on him, but again, like you said, for Kendrick, athletically, yes, there are some challenges, and you kind of expect that in round 6, 7, and the undrafted, right? You kind of hope, well, maybe this guy can fill out a little bit of special teams. Maybe at some point he's at least a decent backup. So when the injuries hit, as you mentioned, and they always do, maybe at least we've got somebody who for 4 games or 6 games can at least kind of hold the fort down. And I think that's what you're getting here with Kendrick. And, I have no problem with them taking a little bit of a risk here with Kendrick in terms of the off-field stuff, because that's a 6th round pick, right? I mean, if it doesn't work out, oh, well, there's always a chance that's not going to happen with 6th round pick anyway. So I agree with you there on Kendrick. I think it's a smart play, and certainly they're trying to hit those defensive back positions as well. Kyron Williams, I think, probably is the biggest name on this list that your average football fan would know. Most of the mocks, say 2-3 months ago even, had Kyron Williams up there, maybe even 2nd round here in some of these. And he slid and slid and slid down the board throughout this process, probably mostly because his combine scores and his pro day stuff weren't impressive. But then when you turn on the film, when you watch him at Notre Dame, the productivity is there. I think they got a pretty good steal here in the 5th round, all things considered. But give me your perspective on it. Kyron Williams, running back from Notre Dame.
I'm right there with you. I love the pick. He had a little bit of a fumbling issue in college, which, you obviously want to nip as soon as you get into the league. He's not necessarily explosive, but he obviously gets the job done. You can't question his productivity in college. Ran for over 2,000 yards, and I want to say like 27 touchdowns over 2 years. So, I mean, he clearly has productivity. He's a fantastic pass blocker, pass protector, which should, come in handy He caught, I believe, 40, a little over 40 receptions last season, which, is another nice little extra element for a fifth round running back. I could see him filling in as a third down back. Maybe not right away, but I personally thought we needed to draft a running back, especially since Sony's heading out. We've got Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson still, which I love the pair of them, and I think that's a very nice 1-2 punch. But as I've kind of been stating throughout, injuries are a thing, and we saw that last season. It was a running back by committee for the Rams last year. There wasn't really a RB1. Some games it was Darrell Henderson taking the workload. Some games it was Sony, and then there at the end of the season, sometimes it was Cam. And some of that had to do with injuries. Some of it had to do with just the flow of the game. But I think Kyron can really fill in. I believe the Rams. I believe McVay said he thinks that Williams is a lot more athletic than he showed in his pro day and all that good stuff. So hopefully it pans out. I really like the pick. With McVay's offensive mind, I'm sure he's scheming up of all the million different things he can come up with them, and I'm pretty hyped up for it.
You pointed out a lot of good detail there about Kyra Williams, so appreciate that. I agree with what McVay is saying. Sometimes a guy just looks better on tape than he does at the combine, and who knows why. I usually think, to me, that's usually an indicator of a good football IQ. They may not be very fast. They may not be the strongest guy, but it looks like when they're in a game, they're processing things a whole lot quicker than some of the better athletes. So, all the things that you mentioned are true. I still like the fifth round. I think it's a great fifth round pick. I'll put it that way. Maybe not a great second round pick, but for a fifth rounder, again, absolutely. I don't see how you can hardly lose here.
Yeah, and the Rams offense, you could argue, speed or agility, whatever. IQ is probably the most important thing to have for this Los Angeles Rams offense. So, I mean, if you already got that heading into the league, you're one step ahead.
Which is fascinating because that's one of the things, Tom Brady aside, that's one of the things the Patriots have hung their hat on for years, is they don't necessarily go after the strongest or the fastest. They like big guys with big IQs. That really seems to be the one consistent throughout everything that they do. One final guy that we haven't talked on, we'll just hit him briefly. Daniel Hardy, outside linebacker from Montana State. I know he's a seventh-round pick, so there's not a lot of film out there on him. But just give us a brief feel for Hardy and whether or not you think he might have a chance to actually, maybe special teams this year, or whether or not he's actually in the linebacker room this year.
Okay, before I start off, have you heard anything about this dude? Have you seen?
I have not. I have to admit, no, I have not.
All right, so I'm going to read you off his production just last season. This is his first season as a starter at Montana State, okay? And it doesn't have how many games he played. 24 and a half tackles for loss, 16 and a half sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 pass breakups. He ran a 4.64 40 and a 40-inch vertical. This is my favorite pick. I love him. I love him already.
That's fantastic, because I was going to ask you at the end, which of these picks do you like the best? And that he's really popping off the tape. Who knows why? Obviously, I guess we'd have to go back and find the backstory as to why, but sometimes it just clicks for guys. And there's always diamonds in the rough, man, every year. Some teams seem to find them easier than others. So that's fascinating there with Hardy here at the outside linebacker spot. That he seems to have a playmaking acumen about him.
Yeah. Troy Anderson, I believe was his name, the middle linebacker. He might just linebacker teammate. So
and that's fascinating. Yeah, when you're the Rams, I feel like there's nothing wrong with swinging for the fences on small school players or players with red flags. You literally have nothing to lose with all these 5th, 6th, and 7th rounders. And if you hit a home run, you have found something that you literally can't buy in free agency. If one of these players actually is a quality starter or maybe even a star in the league here with some of this stuff.
Yeah, and I think the Rams having 8 total picks, clearly they weren't high picks, but they were still picks. That gives them a little bit more flexibility to, maybe draft for ceiling rather than, you know, production or what have you.
I think so, and it's fascinating to watch the different teams, the different situations. I think if you're the Steelers or if you're the Patriots or if you are the Packers, I think you are drafting for production and consistency because of where you are and the picks you have. But if you're the Rams, you don't have these picks. You've already got a Super Bowl in your pocket. I think you are drafting for ceiling. And I think McVay probably likes that better anyway, just to be honest about it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Unless need to. I think that kind of fits their DNA and their character, right?
Yeah, yeah. One point I want to bring up is I don't know if you have this in your notes, but we did end up trading for Troy Hill as well. So he will likely on draft day he will likely be our starting slot corner, which will be interesting. He was a Ram a couple years ago. I can't put a number on it, but he put up, I think he was like 3 pick sixes or something crazy like that in his last year in LA. So Jalen was excited whenever the news came out. Hopefully, that's a nice little pickup. But I feel like Hill and Durant will probably be the ones fighting for that slot position. It'll probably be Hill's until Durant, if Durant takes it over. But yeah, I wanted to throw that in there before we moved on, because I'd almost
And it's so
forgotten about
important.
that.
Exactly. Those things get lost in the shuffle because at a certain point, if you're the media, you're like, well, the Rams don't really have anything significant. So they just kind of, we'll check back in with you in September, basically.
Yeah.
But, the Rams are busy making all these little moves, and these little moves can make the difference between winning division, not winning division, getting home field throughout, not getting it, beating the 49ers, not beating the 49ers. It's moves like these that do make the difference here with Troy Hill or, the 7th round pick, whatever it is that they're doing. The draft is over. Free agency, for the most part, is kind of come and gone here. What's a weak spot or even a hole on the Rams that maybe they haven't fully addressed, or they've tried to address it, but there's still a lot of question marks in that area?
I would say that there are probably 2. The cornerback 2 slot or position is probably the biggest hole. We lost Darius Williams, as I said earlier, and we didn't really bring in a clear cut. This is going to be the guy lining up, opposite side. We have a couple couple people in house that we could promote with Robert Rochelle. He was a rookie last year, and David Long Jr., both of which could I don't want to say easily, but they could step up and make that next step. Edge rusher, the loss of Von Miller. I didn't necessarily think that edge rusher was as big of a need as maybe a lot of people thought after losing Vaughn. He was definitely a huge, 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 huge reason why we won the Super Bowl, right? But I think that if we were to have kept like Michael Brockers prior to the beginning of last season, I feel like maybe Von Miller wouldn't have been such a mandatory move, because it felt like the Rams needed to get Vaughn, right? I think that if the Rams were to have kept Brockers, that might have changed the course of how that front looked. So I would like to see us, honestly, there aren't that many corners that stand out to me left. I'd almost like to go in-house, especially with how we brought in 2 more corners. We've got 2 potential ones stepping up, and then we traded for another one, right? So I don't know if bringing in a free agent is going to be the answer. Seems like after the draft that was kind of, I guess told to us. But for edge, or I don't even know if it needs to be an edge rusher, to be honest. I'd just like someone up front, like an Akeem Hicks or a Robert Quinn, a Jadeveon Clowney would be cool. A Melvin Ingram, I don't know if he's signed anywhere yet. Just someone like that to give a little bit more of a veteran presence, because during the first half of last season, it kind of seemed like There wasn't really a yin to Aaron Donald's yang. Leonard Floyd does a really good job at what he's supposed to do, but he's not necessarily there every snap, I guess. I'd like to see us get another big body up front rather than, maybe a little bit of a slimmer, faster edge rusher. I'd like to see us maybe fill in D tackle, another, defensive end, something like that.
Knowing Les Snead and knowing Sean McVay the way we all seem to, because they kind of put themselves out there a lot. What would you lay the odds at that they're probably not done doing something big before this offseason is over? Maybe even a trade of some sort at some point. They just seem to have that gambler's mentality that they don't like to sit still and just patiently wait for good things to come. What are the odds between here and say all the way at the end of training camp that they go ahead and pull some kind of a move in that way?
Given the prior history, before training camp, I'd give it like a solid 65%. But if we're talking like mid-season, I'd bump it up to like an 80, 85.
Okay.
Because
right.
I know, they're so proactive, and
yes.
It's just they don't care about picks. They really don't, especially whenever we're in a position to win and we feel like we're a piece or two away. We'll make those moves, and that's I was a fan whenever they were in St. Louis, right? I'm only 19 or 20 now. Jeez. So all I've really known was the, St. Louis Rams who promote from within, really. I don't remember many big free agent, acquisitions or anything. The biggest trade that I remember was trading Sam Bradford for Nick Foles, right? So this is a whole new regime. This is a whole new mentality, and I'm all here for it.
I love seeing different styles because, again, if you do things the way everybody else is doing them, you're just going to get in line behind the other people who have been doing it that way for a long time or probably doing it better than you. Les Snead and Sean McVay amuse me. They remind me of my two little boys. I have an 8-year-old and 7-year-old at the beach who can't wait to build a sandcastle. They love it. They take a picture with it. The waves come in and wipe it out, and they're so excited to build the next one. And that's basically what Snead and McVay feel like to me. They won the Super Bowl. Free agency and draft picks are all just wiping out half of their work that they've done on their roster, and they're sitting there making jokes about the Patriots and Strange at press conferences, and they can't wait to jump in and build it all over again.
I love that comp. That's perfect. They just want to build their sandcastle.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, I've enjoyed it a lot. We will talk to you more throughout the off season. We'll talk about position battles and injuries and whatever else that these two guys are up to. But if people want to find more of your work, where can they find it, Ronan?
You can go ahead and find me on Instagram at ronan.summers. You can, from there, you can hit my bio and you can find me anywhere you want, to be honest with you. Yeah, Apple Podcasts, Twitter, Phantom Sports, whatever you want.
Ronan, I've enjoyed it, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. This is Sports and Money with Ben Parker. We'll see you next time. Bye.